Welcome and greetings this evening of your time as you create time to exist. I do not ask you how you are, for I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that you are all perfect. And furthermore, to perfectly segue, I will in that sense entitle this interaction, Everybody's Perfect. There is a concept prevalent in your society, and this is the idea that you begin, in that sense, your life with an empty slate. And in that sense, the process of your life is the filling of that slate, the accumulation of certain knowledge, and what you therefore extrapolate and define as growth. And from one point of view, this is, in fact, an apparency. We do understand, in that sense, how it appears that this is so. And many times individuals will plug into this definitional soup, if you will, the idea that growth implies that you are becoming something better than what you have already been, and thereby becoming more perfect or achieving or approaching a style of perfection. Now again, you can, through the apparency of your reality, experience the seemingness of this. But allow me to tell you from a fundamental point of view that this is only a point of view. For because you are multidimensional, infinite and eternal beings, fundamentally, you truly have no beginning, no middle, and no end. Fundamentally, from perhaps you can say the point of view of your higher self, you are completely timeless, spaceless. And within that timelessness and spacelessness, though it seems as a contradiction, you actually contain everything simultaneously. Simultaneous expression is more of the natural, shall I say, expression of your consciousness. When you choose to express and explore physical reality, you play out that simultaneous expression along a timeline. And rather than, in that sense, simply accessing your totality at all times, have an apparency of unrolling it a bit at a time. That is the apparency that you call growth. So from one physical point of view, you start out blank and gain experience, but from the point of view of your higher self or higher consciousness, you literally impose a style of amnesia and remember who you are a bit at a time, utilizing what you in this way create to be external cues and external reality. But it is not truly fundamentally, since you are eternal, that you grow or in that sense become more of something. For again, you are already everything. And this is an extension of your consciousness. Your physical life, your physical body is an extension within your consciousness. Many times there is the notion that you are a soul within a body. But again, that in and of itself is an apparency. If you wish to be technically accurate, you are a body within a soul. Your consciousness is what you are, and your body is but a distinct point of view within the totality of your consciousness. Now, being that that seems to be centralized in that sense within the vessel of your body, then there is the apparency, once again, of being within a body. And that is part of the experience of seeming as though you can be separated at all from God or all that is. But in fact, you are one. You are an expression of, you are a point of view of, an I, if you will, of all that is, or God. You are one and the same, but you are a distinct and discrete viewpoint within that totality, which seems at this point in your particular expression as though you are a separate being. Understand, every aspect of creation is a perfect reflection of that aspect of creation. And there are not quality points assigned, perhaps you can say colloquially speaking, in the eyes of God. No. Everything is equal within all that is, or God, which we will call all that is. All that is already includes everything and leaves absolutely nothing out. Therefore, it is quite unlikely that you are the one extraneous creation. Therefore, understand that no matter what you are exploring, no matter what you are being, that is always a 100% perfect reflection of that particular exploration, which is equal in the eyes of all that is to all other explorations. Therefore, if you are not the person you wish to be, you are a perfect reflection of the person you do not wish to be. Flawless in its expression. And this is not simply semantics, for you can utilize this 100% one-to-one perfect reflection. We will discuss that in a moment. Because you are already perfect, it is not a matter of achieving something you do not contain. It is a matter of choosing what it is you wish to be at any given moment. For being eternal, your one quality, before you start breaking yourself down and separating yourself out from all that is simply existence itself. Beingness. You simply are. Period. The idea of purpose was, perhaps you can say, an afterthought. You already are, and then the idea of purpose in a linear progression was actually, so to speak, created later. And that is, in and of itself, simply an expression, a point of view, purpose. The idea is that because you are always a perfect reflection, you can always look at how you are presenting yourself and how your life seems to present itself to you and learn about yourself directly. For the idea is, because your experience is a 100% perfect reflection of your attitude and consciousness, if there are things within your existence that you do not prefer, now you may understand that they reflect to you certain ideas that once you look at, you can change. At this juncture, I remind you, your reality is a result after that quality of existence itself that you have, of your beliefs, emotions, and thoughts. And one leads to the next. You have a belief, a particular perspective, a point of view, an approach. From that approach, from that belief, you generate emotions, and they always directly correspond. Therefore, another way of looking at this is that your emotions are a 100% perfect reflection of your strongest belief that you are expressing in the moment you feel that emotion. Now, by extension, what I am saying is that you can use your emotions in any given situations, and we are assumptively talking about the non-preferred emotions to trace back to that belief, because it is a 100% perfect reflection of that belief. Through your beliefs and then generated emotions, you create patterns of thought, what you sometimes refer to as mentality or thinking. Ultimately, because you are physical beings in a physical world, you then act, you do something. And it is the actions in and of themselves that physically midwife your reality into place. So though you have the expression thoughts are things, in your experiential reality, they are not until you act upon them. So thoughts once acted upon are things would perhaps replace that definition more accurately. So therefore, your actions always are the bottom line, 100% perfect reflection of what you are exploring. And because of this, if you are doing something that you do not prefer, you can use that 100% perfect reflection to trace back. If I'm acting this way, how am I thinking? And when I think this way, what am I feeling? And when I feel this way, what must any person believe in these circumstances to feel this way? This type of self-honesty, this type of personal dialogue can allow you in any given situation to trace back to the belief that you are expressing in that moment. You can only change a belief once you own it, once you acknowledge that, like it or not, yes, this is the belief that I am expressing. Denial of the belief blocks your access toward changing it. Simple acknowledgement equalizes it to all other beliefs. Denial gives it more weight, gives you more of a tendency to draw your attention to it, and therefore more of a tendency to choose that belief. But acknowledgement lightens it up, equalizes it to all other ideas. For it is not truly that within the beingness that you express that you have one belief or the other. That is not accurate. You would not be all that is and leave one belief out. You contain the potential for all beliefs, every belief and its complete opposite, obviously. So it is not a matter of beliefs that you are forced to, in that sense, play out with no choice. You contain all beliefs, and the ones that you express have this particular effect of generating emotions, corresponding emotions or feelings, thoughts and actions. And again, since it is ultimately the actions that create your reality, whenever you head yourself off from automatic negative actions, you automatically change the outcome and cannot get the quote-unquote same old negative outcome in a quote-unquote seemingly same old situation. No situations are truly the same, but we understand your tendency to create cycles that you label repetitive. When you deny a belief, you put it back into what you very effectively create as your subconscious. And then it presents itself to you again. So that is why you often will have a seeming repetitivity in your life. When you deny a belief, back into the closet, but it does not stay there. It knocks upon the door, many times louder and more obnoxious. But that is up to you. For when it knocks seemingly once again, if you are willing to acknowledge it, it does not go back into the closet. It equalizes to all your other beliefs. Then you can choose the belief that you prefer. Sound too easy? Perhaps it is. But that is how you already create your reality. Automatically, effortlessly, and simply. So when you extrapolate in your imagination how a person or yourself or anything you wish to plug in to make this practical, but how a person with the new preferred belief would act having acknowledged the old belief, you will come up with a criteria. You will come up with how a person would act if they had the belief that you say you prefer. And when your imagination hands this forth to you on, as you say, a silver platter, you then have plan B. Now, whichever you act on, the actions of the old, perhaps sometimes automatic belief, or the actions of the new preferred belief in acknowledgement of the old belief, will determine the reality you experience, as it always has. You are not learning to do anything new in what we are sharing. We are simply making you aware of what you effortlessly and automatically do and speak about factoring in choice, desire, and preference. For you can create your life through choice, according to preference, through your desire. As, again, perhaps an alternative for many of the ways that you now express yourself. So in terms of step one, the acknowledgement of the limiting belief, both your actions, your thoughts, and your emotions are a 100% perfect reflection of those beliefs. That is part one. Understand also the following. As you change, as you transform, as you choose anew, perhaps now consciously, everything that has ever happened to you, everything that you have ever done, anyone in this life that you have ever been, was absolutely 100% necessary in order for you to be who you are right now. Therefore, there is nothing you have ever been that is any less a perfect reflection of that level of expressing yourself than what you are doing now. And you need not, when you adopt a new point of view, now go around blatantly invalidating the old point of view both in yourself and both in everyone else who expresses it in your presence. Now, obviously, this is an option, but that is, in a sense, a denial and an invalidation of the point of view you say you no longer have. And invalidating a belief is, perhaps you can say many times, a fancy word for denying it. So therefore, you can appreciate anything that you have ever been, anything that you have ever done. Now, I am not saying in any way, shape, or form to condone the things that perhaps you have done that may feel like they are out of integrity. No. Condoning something means acting that way now. But you can validate them. You can state in the moment, that is what has led me to here. I prefer not to express that ever again, but I understand the value. That is validating and then choosing anew. So therefore, in validating or acknowledging the beliefs that you have in order to change them, you can also validate and acknowledge the different approaches that you have taken, the different points of view that you have explored. The idea is that once you are willing to validate yourself to that degree, it spills over to your interpersonal relationships with everyone else. Once you are unwilling to invalidate anything about yourself, once you simply choose no longer to invalidate yourself, you will automatically, generally fairly immediately, begin to not invalidate anyone else. For as your own literature says, love others as you love yourself. And what this truly means is that your ability to love others is, in that sense, determined by your willingness to love yourself. And your seeming inability to love others is directly, as well, proportional to your unwillingness to unconditionally love yourself. So as you perceive not only the perfection of what you are now exploring, but the perfection of what you have been, and are willing to begin to acknowledge the perfection in all others, whether or not you choose to express that reality, then you can be approaching a point of view that exists within all that is, which is ultimate appreciation. which is the willingness to unconditionally love any expression. What you read of as the judgmental God in your Bible is not, from our perspective, an accurate representation of all that is. It is a personification. It is making God in the image of man and woman. The idea is that God is 100% completely unconditional. You cannot lose the love of God no matter what you do. No strings attached. And therefore, because this mechanism exists automatically in the universe, you can always use that as a model, as a template. You can always tap into it, the unconditional love of all that is, because it is constant and eternal. And your willingness to even touch base with it, to even understand, wait a minute, no matter how I am treating myself, all that is unconditionally loves me. If all that is unconditionally loves me, I can feel that at any moment. Perhaps I can use a booster shot of trust in myself and take a few breaths and feel it. It is continuous. And all it takes is simply the notion of reminding yourself. If you will agree that all that is unconditionally loving, all it then requires is, in a situation, a reminder. And again, nothing is truly learned but remembered from your totality, from what you already are, from what you already know. As you begin to live your life according to preference, according to your excitement, but with integrity. And integrity is simply, in all that you do, expressing the constant knowingness that everything is all connected, everything is an extension of you, and that everything that seems external to you exists within you. That understanding has an attitude of respect. For you would not, I assume, chop off your limbs. So therefore, I assume you would afford everything that same respect. And that is what we mean by integrity. For if you factor in what moves you in any situation, and with integrity act upon that opportunity, you can get nothing but service to self and others. For the recognition and honoring of that integrity is the ultimate acknowledgement of the 100% perfection of reality. Therefore, it is all at your fingertips, as you say. It is all within your grasp. You already create your life, but many times you create again an apparency of what you call a subconscious, and then function from beliefs you express from that closet. However, only do you do so after having had a particular feeling, thought, and action. That is the only thing that creates effect. So therefore, at any time, you can simply stop. Again, perhaps colloquially, look before you leap, before you do. For it is the doing that creates in your life. It always has. It always will. And therefore, the tone, the intent, and the nature of your approach in action is what has created your life the way it is. The state of your life is a perfect reflection back to those beliefs that you have acted upon, and thereby is a mirror or a window to transforming or changing the beliefs you no longer prefer. And this is what begins to set you apart at this transformational age upon your planet. The idea of factoring in preference and the understanding that everything that you have ever created has been done by making a particular choice in a particular situation and then acting upon that choice. Now, when you begin to look at changing your reality according to preference, never do you act without giving yourself at least one positive choice. For when you lie a negative, outdated set of actions on the table to see next to a positive, preferred set of actions, it will never be difficult to choose the positive actions that would reflect who you choose and prefer to be. It is simply a matter of admitting or letting yourself in on how that alternative would express. Is this clear? Are you all alive? Thank you. Some laughter. Good sign. Therefore, I thank you for your willingness to share the expression of your perfection with me and members of my society and the respective societies that we in many ways represent. For we always, no matter what you believe about yourself, believe in you utterly and understand the mechanism that you are now beginning to look at with more discerning eyes. And this is one of the reasons we are even able to communicate with you at this time. For you have reached a point, not any better of a point than any other point, but simply a point where you are now willing to acknowledge what I am talking about within you. And therefore, automatically, because the universe is a 100% perfect reflection, you draw and attract unto yourself a 100% perfect reflection of what can be of assistance to you, thereby allowing you to begin to express yourself in less limited terms. So my ability to communicate with you and your ability to understand what I am saying lets you know this and tells you this in no uncertain terms. You are ready. Nothing is an accident. Everything is perfect. For that gift, the gift of sharing your perfection and swimming within the collective perfection that we all express, I thank you. And I ask you how we may mutually be of service to each other. Sharon. Ice.
Seems like you're reading my mind.
Oh, no. Oh. Well, do understand that once you do validate others and identify with where they are coming from rather than build up a defense against them, that mechanism, the complete unconditional love, is the same as a complete identification as. And that is what puts us of the frequency in that case, or in that sense, to access these things with any of you. Do proceed.
This afternoon, I had a conversation with Mallory about some problems I was having at home.
Some what? You what?
Situations.
Situations that you have not allowed to transform? Thank you.
And it seems like I was upset with my wife for what she was doing, and here I was doing the same thing.
Well, again, a 100% perfect reflection. If you find something that you do not prefer in someone else, many times it is an issue that you yourself have not yet reconciled or are currently continuing to display. So, did you use the reflection? Number one. And two, did you then display the ultimate expression and evidence of using that expression, which is appreciation, thanking her for reflecting it to you? Well, perhaps when you do, you will begin to unravel this at its very core. For there is a momentum, and always can that momentum be stopped from either end. Only, however, can you stop it from your end. So what will you now do with this information? And before you answer, I again remind you, employing, expressing in your life what I am talking about then provides evidence to you, but a living example to everyone else. Arguing with them about it demonstrates the complete opposite. When you believe, listen up, when you believe what you are saying, in the power of your ideas. There is never, with that complete belief, convincing, forcing, insistence. Those are all expressions of trying to convince and trying to convince someone else, no matter how you wish to clothe it, is an expression that you do not believe it completely yourself. Now, you need not beat yourself up. I should get this by now. You can. But if you allow it to be all right that you have felt that way, you can change it. If you judge yourself for having done it and place yourself upon the litmus paper of where you should be, you will create the opposite negative effect. If you simply understand this, make the change in your action. Thank her, because I assume you will truly feel the appreciation for the realignment that she has provided. You will no longer need to speak to her about any of this, and simply allow it to come up where it will or where she asks you. But you will still be doing, and perhaps more of a complete service to her, by embodying the information. That is the only thing that shows someone this works. Look, I'm a living example. But you are not doing it to show them. They can see that, but you are not doing it for that purpose. You are doing it because it is who you are. So begin to look where you, all right, force feed these point of views down her throat. All right? Is that of assistance?
Very much so.
Is there anything else?
No.
We thank you. Shutting. Ace, female. Was not speaking to you. Do not butt in. Good friend. How are you? Oh.
I'm going to ask you if you can say something about the insistence and being persistent. What's the difference between?
Are you speaking of insistence versus persistence?
Yes.
Oh. Insistence, again, in general, is meant in terms of when discoursing with someone and they are not receptive to your point of view, you then, in a convincing, again, throat-forcing mode, feel that it is your responsibility to convince them. And that, again, is a reassertion of the fact that you do not completely believe it yourself. Persistence, however, is the knowingness in the actions through your life that this is who you are, and that if the situations of your life do not seem to immediately present what it is you intend to experience, that you simply go about your business and maintain that idea which is not available but you still desire as a clear intention, not selling out because it is not immediately available. Does that clarify?
Yes.
In a sense, they are interchangeable, but that is how we are using them. Is there something else?
Not on that topic. I'm trying not to be so insistent about a lot of things.
All trying to not be insistent. Again, all the trying is not the doing of the thing, but simply the doing of trying. So simply do it. You are either insistent or you are not. There is no middle ground. All right?
Yes. Thank you.
And to you. Male.
All right. Greetings, Elan.
Now, you did not take offense, did you?
Enough, I didn't.
Oh, all right. Perhaps then you are beginning to understand the extent of my unconditional love and my willingness in being familiar with you to perhaps act in that way. And we thank you. Do proceed. What do you wish to share?
Well, I thought you were recognizing me as female when you said that.
Well, in a sense, you all contain both, but that is a different discussion altogether.
I was just following up with what Vinny was saying. Once you have approached someone and you've acted out on some old behaviors and you've, I call it hooking in, you've hooked into the situation, you start arguing with the person. I find myself, it takes me a little while to collect myself, to get a hold of my own beliefs.
So what you are saying to me is that up till now, it has.
Right.
Do you prefer it to simply be automatic?
Yes.
Then go right ahead.
Okay.
And again, understand that that is all it takes. When you see, I'm about to argue, take a breath, reassess. Perhaps at first, there may seem to be many inserted pauses in your life. At first. But when you pause and then act according to preference, the overwhelming positive evidence will simply make it the more desirable choice in every instance. And also you will find once you connect with that referential, preferential you in your imagination and begin to hand situations over to it and begin to act upon those situations, that will become your automatic response. So there is perhaps again a pause to be inserted. Are you willing to do so?
Definitely.
Then you no longer are the same person who came into this interaction.
Because this happened about an hour ago. And I found myself, I physically did like a circle in the room so I could collect myself and pull all this back to me, bring it back home. And it was kind of odd and funny. You know, this is my ex-wife. She's like looking at me, wondering what I'm doing. I'm like taking a circle in the room.
Oh.
And I stopped myself, and I still found myself getting my buttons pushed by her. And what I want to ask.
Well, one moment. As you have so aptly put it, they are your buttons. Thank her for pushing them, for you would not have had them brought to your awareness without her service. That is at least one approach. Do proceed.
Yeah, she seems to be the only one.
You mean to tell me that in your entire reality, you have nailed your growth down to merely one more relationship? Congratulations.
That's really it. She's a very powerful person in my life. I love her very much.
Well, understand in no uncertain terms, in light of what we are discussing, the above and beyond what you realize service that she is doing. It takes a brave commitment to reflect this back. Now, perhaps she is not always completely conscious that she is doing so, in much the same way that you too impose a collective amnesia upon yourself. But on her higher self, higher consciousness, shall I say perspective, she is purposefully assisting you. So you can acknowledge this and then get that effect now.
I definitely know she is assisting me because the information that comes to me from her is about some sensitive areas that I'm still in the process of understanding. And so what I want to ask is that now that I did kind of touch up an argument for a few minutes, what's the good way to respond back? Like, I want to call back and kind of clear the air because we've taken these steps. And what do you think the proper way?
Well, perhaps in this instance, I can simply say what I would say. Now, I would not be in the situation. However, I can extrapolate that perhaps I would say, dear ex-wife, or dear whatever her name is. I wish to call you to thank you. Now, perhaps it will seem on the surface that I am being sarcastic. I am not. I am learning many things about myself, and I am shifting my viewpoint to embody preference and the things that I prefer and the things that are of service to me and all others in my life. Now, when I was here the other day, I had perhaps momentarily lost sight of that. And you had been of great service to me in pointing out to me that I still have certain buttons, which when I allow to be pushed, then seem to result in me acting in very much the way I do not prefer. So thank you for pointing this out. I will, in that sense, use the great gift that you have given to me and perhaps get back to you to, in that sense, reality test it later. Now, something to that effect. It is up to you. But do you understand the approach? Do you understand the complete validation? Do you understand the willingness to completely express that you know that she is part of you. Oh,
Most definitely. And the irony of this is that one of my biggest complaints when I was with her was that she was always so perfect.
Well, what a coincidence. Now you know you are too. And when you approach her with that similar sense of esteem, you also may, in that sense, diminish some of the seeming friction. For you no longer need place her, in that sense, above you. She was expressing that degree of perfection. You are expressing a different style, but no less that same perfection.
Right, understood.
Oh, is this of service?
Definitely, always.
Then we thank you
Thank you.
for, in that sense, pushing a few of other individuals' buttons as well. Shutting. Ace.
Quick question. You said that we contain both sexes within it.
You contain the expression in energetic format of female energy, which is receptive, inflow, input, and male energy, which is action, output, outflow. And in a sense, in order to express yourself in this way, in physical terms as a separate being, separated from another point in space, and therefore then the creation of time, in order to express this. One moment. All right. Is there something else you wish to say?
We're talking about the male, female.
Ice.
We contain it both.
Ice. And you express them both. This is what allows you, in a sense, to make sense of your reality. Now, both female or receptive energy and male or assertive action energy can be, in that sense, expressed negatively or positively. If you, in that sense, express your female energy negatively, for example, you will have negative interpretations about your reality. If you express your male energy, in that sense, negatively, you will then act or put out in negative terms. So it is not that one is negative and one is positive. They are both.
The thing what I'm saying is that there is a difference between male and female.
Well, there is your physical expression and exploration of the physical aspects of that polarity, but also those energies which are existent within all of you. For again, remember, your body is an expression within your consciousness or soul, but your soul being multidimensional, infinite, and eternal is not male or female. Male and female are simply polarity expressions within you. So you are both and at the same time, neither. Is there something that you are wishing to use this for?
Well, in the conversation today with Maui, we were talking about how females' roles are and men's roles are.
Well, this is now what you are speaking about as stereotypical judgment calls. We are speaking about the overall sense and essence of the energy itself.
Yes, and I noticed that you're saying that there is a difference between male and female energy. And that if I had a female body, that I would...
could still express both in a balanced way. But would, in physical terms, because of the choice of expressing one gender, also then, shall I say, be perceived in that mode as part of your choice and part of the choice of the individuals around you to perceive these polarities. Oh, is that all?
Yes.
We thank you. Shut it. Yes.
I'm trying to become more aware of how to maybe use meditation or something to get more awareness with my higher self.
All right, more trying. All right.
Okay, I haven't been doing it. I would like to do it.
All right.
I'm more aware of my higher self.
Well, first of all, before you proceed, simply an explanation. There is a perception from your physical, seemingly partition point of view that here you are, here is your ominous higher self, somehow separated in both space, but perhaps also in time. And what you are speaking of is creating a chord or a connection between two separate ideas. However, fundamentally, this is inaccurate. It is an apparency. If you wish to be accurate about it, you are the higher self. So therefore, where the connection becomes evident are through a particular system of perception that exists within you that is known as your excitement. For that particular approach, that particular vibration is a barometer in any given situation of what your higher self, in no uncertain terms, is expressing to you. This is me. This is who I am. Now, as we have shared, it will always be up to you or this point of view within you to act on that exciting thing and to do so with integrity or not. But if you are willing to become aware of what moves you, what gives you passion, what brings you joy, what excites you the most, that is the direct voice directly in your mind's ear of your higher self. And that is why you feel excited about one thing versus another. That excitement is an indication. So many of you will say, I'm searching for my purpose. I'm searching for my higher self. Something very exciting comes along, taps you on the shoulder. You say, not now. I'm looking for my higher self. Your higher self just tapped you on the shoulder. And what increases the understanding of this connection is the willingness to act upon the message that is received. When you act upon an exciting opportunity with integrity, things become more apparently exciting within your reality. You begin to express that higher self. Now, this is not to say that you cannot sit within the knowingness and expression of your higher self in a meditative state, for that is also one of your expressions of point of view. To do so, all you simply would do in that sense is breathe very deeply, if you wish, in through your nose, out through your mouth, but truly that is not important. That only establishes one particular point of flow. And in that sense, allow your mind's eye to view the stream of consciousness as it goes by. For very often individuals in what you call achieving meditative state will attempt, more trying, to stop all thinking, to stop the flow of thought. And this paradoxically, as thinking or trying not to think of a pink elephant, simply in that sense has the opposite effect. If you allow the flow, simply observe it without impinging upon it, without interacting with it, you will seem to achieve, perhaps you can say, a space or place of perfect peace, where all is at center and all potentials are equally achievable. Simply breathe deeply, sit straight, and allow yourself to discover how it feels, not assume it must feel a certain way, set up a rigid expectation, and then say, well, it didn't do that. Does that help?
Yeah, so can you clarify what you meant by the mind's eye?
Well, in other words, when you close your eyes, I assume there is still a thought process going on. Yes?
Yes.
And individuals will, in that sense, say, well, I must shut my thoughts up. That is meditation. But that is not meditation. That is shutting your thoughts up. Meditation is removing yourself from the involvement with the thoughts and just simply observing them or listening or however you perceive your thoughts, them as they go by. Not having a vested interest in them, in general, will then seem to bring you to a place where they do quiet down, but that is not the point. And that, again, is only one expression of that connection. So you can meditate and feel your constant connection to your higher self, your constant being of your higher self. But you can also, and again, perhaps this is more the point, express your higher self through the actions of your life, through your excitement. So we have given you two ways. Both can be quite ecstatic. Will this be practical and of service?
Yes, it will be. And I have a question as far as, I guess maybe it comes to what my beliefs are. Doing things that excite me
with integrity.
Integrity. So if I believe that those are not good things for me to do, even though they create excitement in my life or I enjoy them, is that because it may be necessarily a belief that I do or don't, or I'm trying to force myself to believe in?
Well, this can be a multiplicity of effects. It can be, on some level, your recognition that it is not within your integrity, but perhaps you are opening another can of worms referred to as deservability. For in order, in that sense, to express and create according to preference and desire, you must understand that you all inherently contain an ability. Now, very often it seems that individuals phrase that you must achieve deserving, but it is an inherent ability, and you nearly would wake that up and express your ability to deserve. You needed to do nothing to deserve to exist. You cannot remember anything you needed to do. Therefore, you do not need to do anything to continue to exist and to express who you are and to validate who you are. So begin to look at whether or not when something excites you, your hesitation is from, again, understanding that perhaps that is not integrated. If I do this, it will perhaps harm this one or harm me or not be in cognizance of my agreement and thereby out of my integrity. But also look to say, well, none of those things are in place. I absolutely think that doing this is within my integrity. And look at, is the hesitation, do I deserve it? Do I buy into the no pain, no gain philosophy so heavily that I will only afford myself things I prefer by the sweat of my brow? Now, that is one approach, obviously, but it is not the most effortless nor ecstatic approach by any means. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
We thank you as well.
Elan,
Ace.
our scientists have recently discovered that black holes do exist in the universe.
Ace. And their reciprocal white holes exist as well. Do proceed.
And they have suggested that there's a possible link between the black holes and the possibility of time travel in the future.
Well, yes, but that will also be in the past and through vast distances of space, for they are very literally doorways, portholes.
Are there time travelers from our future in our worlds right now?
Well, that is something that interestingly does occur, but in general, the ones from your own world will abide by a particular code of, shall I say, not showing themselves. But there have been instances, even within this gathering this evening, of individuals who have perceived craft that would literally, colloquially come from your own future Earth.
I see.
So perhaps, again, some percentage or portion of what you generally colloquially refer to as UFOs are indeed crafts from your own planet. Now, again, I remind you from your past as well, but this again is another subject.
What percentage of those would you say are crafts from our future?
One moment. I will scan. Between what you would call 1 and 3%, very low percentage. One of the presentations to allow you to understand that it is not something typically described in your UFOlogy is a rectangular craft.
Okay. One other question.
Oh,
More and more people have come forward claiming that they've been abducted by UFOs.
all right. But we do prefer detainment rather than abduction.
Right, and a recent movie called Fire in the Sky has brought that topic to the public in a more wide-scale way.
Well, through, shall I say, a degree of fear, but yes.
Yeah, so, yeah, my point is that it seems to be increasing fear among a lot of people.
Well, what is occurring is that individual's interpretation was through fearful perception. So therefore, everything was interpreted and translated by him in negative terms from the mode you call victimization.
But many of the people that have come forward have claimed that they were physically hurt and that they have recurring pain, not only physically but emotionally.
Ace, but This is not from the interaction itself and is a product of the judgment and the resistance of the individual that they are part of their own agreement. That resistance causes the pain, not the so-called procedures themselves. Now, I understand that when individuals create that pain, psychic, emotional, spiritual pain, that it is quite real to them. But what I am suggesting is that it is not inherent, shall I say, inherently from the interaction. It is from their continued initial interpretation and reinterpretations that again resist their role in having agreed to do this. Now, there are many individuals in your society having been in that sense detained in that way since childhood that you never hear of, for they never filed it in the negative draw. And when they, in that sense, interpreted it as a positive interaction that they have obviously agreed to, it is something special and very often quite private in their lives.
At what point do people agree to those?
Well, again, colloquially, in what you would consider to be between lives or from the higher self perspective.
So if people don't have a recognition of their past lives in a clear way.
Well, it is not so much that. It is this. It is the understanding of your ability to respond in any given situation in your life, your complete responsibility in any moment. In other words, something is happening to you in a physical world. You understand, now that we have discussed many of these things, that you are here by choice. When it happens, you have two choices. Why is this happening to me is choice A. Choice B is, all right, I did not expect this and perhaps do not prefer it, but how is it of service to me exactly the way it is? Choice A, victimization. Choice B, creatorhood and inquisitive exploration. In other words, you can take for granted that anything you are experiencing is the product of an agreement on some level. But when you truly choose to embody this, then your approach winds up being, I take the agreement for granted. What I wish to know is, why did I agree and what am I getting out of this? And that is where individuals' point of view changes. And understand that many of the individuals who have worked through this fear actually now look at it in that way. And you will begin to hear more and more from them, as well as some of the individuals who it has been a pleasant experience for perhaps you can say some of them are beginning to feel that the scenario is, to use your slang, getting a bad rap.
Many of the people claim that they choose not for it to occur again, but they understand that it's beyond their control.
Well, not really. And simply an insistent, direct, intentionful communication during one of those interactions that I no longer agree to do this can stop them completely. Individuals do not always know this and do not phrase it in that way, where they completely take responsibility and simply withdraw the agreement. They do it from the perspective of victim, which already has a whole set of assumptions built into it.
Just one other question.
Oh,
Something I alluded to last time about the crop circles that have been coming up all over England, and now they seem to be appearing throughout cornfields in the United States. I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that phenomenon and what the symbols mean.
Well, the symbols in many ways are often what you will refer to as archetypal. And therefore, they will make more of an impression in your visual perception upon your consciousness, which if you then tap into how that impression feels, will deliver information in a different way than you are used to. For reading them or interpreting them will paradoxically not be a matter of looking outside of yourself in any way, but will be, again, a result of completely turning within. They are, again, perhaps you can say, stamps, impressions, postcards. Now, again, some of them simply are archetypal symbols, which will have no analytical translation. Others have, shall I say, for those who are so inclined, for different ideas will appeal to different individuals, geometric and mathematical expressions that can be in that way interpreted and related to many other things. But also, is there built into some of these presentations aspects of what you would consider to be ancient pictograms, ancient, perhaps you can say, colloquially, hieroglyphics from your ancient past. And when these connections begin to be made, that will open another chapter altogether in the entire history of the phenomena, but also the entire history of extraterrestrial interactions with Earth throughout your history. So there are many things that are on the verge of expressing, and the time is nigh. You are within a transformation, not about to enter it by any means, but fully within it.
Elan,
Ace.
extraterrestrials played any role at all in our evolutionary process throughout human history,
In many ways, yes.
for example?
There will be an interaction upcoming where we will speak about this in specifics, but briefly. You may understand that there was, early on in your history, extraterrestrial interactions with what you would call early humans. And in that sense, from time to time, was a little bit of a genetic nudge. But this was in no way that they own or have any claims staked to you as a society. They, in that sense, simply facilitated something which would in many ways naturally have occurred over many years. And then once the vehicle, once the vessel, once your body style existed, thereby gave the opportunity for souls to incarnate. And again, this is another part of the story. For now, will that do?
Thank you, Elan.
Oh, thank you.
Elan?
What civilization was that?
That we will discuss later. But understand, for very specific reasons, we have been withholding this information for the entire time of the channeling, not only through this channel. All right?
When you say later, is that in the near future, or do you mean like next year?
Yes. I mean the near future or next year. One moment. At this timing, we will pause for a short break of 10 to 15 minutes of your counting and resume contact at that time. All right, I'll say, continue shedding. Hey.
Greetings.
And to you.
Long time no talk.
If you say so. To me, it was just an instant.
Would you comment on the idea that there is a civilization within the Earth?
There are colloquially referenced within much of your literature the idea of a civilization existing subterranean within your Earth. Now, from our perspective, and that is all that we ever communicate to you from, this is not literally so in your dimensional reality. But do understand, you perceive that you are upon the one Earth. And that is what all the inhabitants of all the infinite numbers of Earths also perceive. But because you are eternal, because you are infinite, and because you are multidimensional, there exists many other expressions of Earth, many other versions of Earth, separated seemingly from your experience by merely what you would call frequency. It's frequency expression. Now, to keep this simplified, the idea is what you would call inhabitants of inner Earth exist in another dimensional reality, not the physical dimension you consider to be your own. So perhaps in one way you can say they do exist, and in another way, experientially, at least face to face right now, they do not. Now, all it takes, in a sense, to interact with anything is shifting your own frequency. So it is something that is accessible.
Well, I've heard that Admiral Byrd, when he discovered, what was it, the Arctic?
Well, what you are referring to is what you refer to as the poles, the physical magnetic poles of your planet, are literally similar to what was previously discussed about black holes, gateways. They are, perhaps you can say, the primary vortices or vortex on your planet. Again, your planet expresses intersections of flows of energy that you call vortices. These are very similar to what you would call chakras of energy in your own body. But what you would refer to as the poles literally would be perhaps analogous to your own crown chakra, which is a direct, again, gateway manifestation of energy through which you can literally seem to travel. So therefore, in that particular area, it is very conducive to shift your frequency to perceive other things, which is what occurred to that individual. So one person perhaps would walk to that very same spot and see nothing. Another one may align with the shift in frequency and experience that reality, literally walking from one dimension into another and, in his case, back again.
Back to the previous question, in the first half by Tim on black holes, can you relate the black hole concept to the Big Bang and the possibility that our universe is now contracting rather than expanding?
Oh. The idea is that within what you would consider to be the Big Bang are many expressions that would seem to emanate from it. As we had fundamentally and foundationally shared with you from time to time, what you call Big Bang is literally the expression of the intersection of non-physicality consciousness with the physical universe. And once consciousness in a non-physical form intersects or penetrates or pierces or cohabitates, if you will, into the physical, that result seems like an explosion, quote unquote, of something, quote unquote, from nothing. So therefore, when that expression occurs and does in that sense seem to, in that way, explode into a multiplicity of phenomena, one of those phenomena is what you refer to as black hole, and is, shall I say, presented in your perception as a particularly concentrated conglomeration of matter that in that sense then, as you say, exhibits a form of gravity. But that is not exactly precise.
Okay. Would you say anything as to where our scientists are in terms of being close to drastic new insights as to the universe?
Well, they are occurring all the time, but they are not necessarily descriptions of an objective reality, but simply descriptions and many times then creations within it. Is there something specific you are asking?
Well, I guess I've heard the idea that there are some misconceptions by our scientists about the nature of the universe, and some of those are going to be drastically affected by, eventually if they get, I guess, the Hubble telescope working properly, or maybe other instruments.
Many things in that way will be confirmed, and many things will in that sense seem to shift. One of the ideas that, again, we communicate with you is that space and time are infinite expressions. So therefore, there is no boundary to your universe, there is no edge, and what you call Big Bang is merely a localized effect, which is also not well understood. It is assumed to be the beginning of the one universe, and that is not accurate.
How in the world will our scientists, given their approach with logic, ever decide that there is more than one universe?
Well, to some degree they already have, and woven into the concepts you colloquially refer to as quantum physics are what you call 10 and upwards dimensions built into the mathematics, sometimes discussed or expressed as enfolded realities or dimensions. So there is already a recognition of this concept, though now it is largely theoretical and is not necessarily taking into consideration that what defines a reality is a bandwidth, is a frequency, but this will be in that sense understood.
But maybe all this will become clear when we achieve fourth density.
Well, to some degree, you will in that way come to contact and terms with it within third as well. One other idea that will become more apparent and is receiving more and more attention is the holographic nature of reality, which means every point, colloquially speaking, contains all the information of all other points within reality. This is perhaps a major concept that is beginning to come to light.
The idea that one of our cells contains all that information sure puts a whole different viewpoint on how powerful our computers are compared to that approach.
But this is not a new idea, and what you refer to as cloning was only accomplished in the way that it has been, rudimentary as it may be, from this understanding that each part contains the information of the whole. But that is not only the information of your body, it is everything.
If I can squeeze one more in.
Squeeze away.
Politically, and the future politically of what was the Soviet Union and nuclear bombs and the threat that they might represent. Where do you see that all?
Well, we remind you that our perception of the reading of your mass consciousness draws to your attention a consensual decision made approximately, if you wish to be precise, your 1977 year. Collectively, you decided not to destroy yourself by those means. So everything now that you are seeing is merely a blemish, is merely the bubblings up within the safety of understanding that. Now, we have not said that there is not the possibility for limited exchanges of this style, but the idea of global annihilation is no longer in that sense a consideration. And congratulations.
That mass consciousness applies to the new governments, the new countries, the new leaders.
Well, the mass consciousness leaves no one out.
Okay.
What I am speaking of as mass consciousness is the portion of, perhaps you can say, the electromagnetic field of your planet that each one of you is represented in. It is all of you, and at the same time can perceive itself to some degree, as you can, as a single self-aware individual.
California.
Now, you are not going to ask me if it will fall into the ocean, are you?
Good question.
Oh, thank you. It is our perception that it will not. Shifts there will be. Some shaking up is possible. Next month of your time, there is a degree of likelihood behind this. But it is not our particular understanding of what you call tectonic dynamics that the resultant factor would be a literal swallowing by the ocean. No.
Is this somewhat resultant from the idea that Mother Earth has some kind of a blue energy field around it that's been created to help it heal itself?
Well, not so much, but the idea is rather than needing to express that style of tumultuous expression in one area, in one place, individuals are funneling or siphoning this effect through them and thereby dispersing it rather than having it be localized. There was far more momentum behind that type of idea decades ago. It has been dispersed in the mass consciousness.
I'll sleep better tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, but you need not in that way base that on anything I have said. You create your own reality, and even if it were in that sense to be a reality in which California slid into the ocean, I assume you would not be there at the time. One moment. Is that all?
Yes, thank you very much.
And to you.
Can you say about where in California this earthquake will take place?
No. It is not that specifically localized at this time. Ace, female.
Elan,
Ace.
this is my first time, so I have
Oh, thank you. It is my first time as well.
I have many questions, but I'll try to get some of the background so the other people here.
No need to try. They will be forthcoming with it.
One specific question. When children have quote-unquote imaginary friends, are they in fact channeling?
Well, many times It can be an expression of what you call channeling, but may also simply be awareness of what you societally refer to as a guide. And more often than not, this is the case. And the individual, in being offered many explanations for what is occurring, often will buy into it was just your imagination. But understand, from our perspective, they are simply aware of a reality which is not normally shared by the masses.
Specifically, when children have these imaginary friends, they have conversations and they actually hear the other person or whatever guide.
If they physically would seem to, it would in that sense represent a guide. If it's simply a mental dialogue or discourse, many times they will simply be personifying their own feelings and bouncing or reflecting them off of themselves.
Are you a guide of Andrew's?
Well, in a sense. What you generally refer to as a guide is non-corporeal or non-physical consciousness. Many times, literally a friend from many lives that has chosen to remain non-physical. Why I say, perhaps in one sense about myself, is I have a body. I have a life. I have a planet. I have a spaceship. But the idea is I am, as you define yourself, very similar. So perhaps we guide each other. But I am not your colloquial definition of a guide. But in many ways, yes.
Are you accessible to other people?
Absolutely. And one of the keys to interacting with me and the many willing members of my society, who again, being that we function telepathically between us, find this quite effortless, is simply in a meditative state, conjuring up how it feels, not analyzing, how it emotionally feels to interact with me. That feeling is literally like a phone number, like an address. It dials us in. Now, your willingness to validate what you get from us also then strengthens the exchange. If you use what is given, more comes. If you do not, very often we will simply pause. But the idea is, when you are receiving communications from our stream, there are several guidelines they will always follow. Number one, they will never disempower you. Number two, they will never suggest that anything that we are discussing is better in any way than anything you are doing. Therefore, there is absolutely no judgment from our end, and never will you hear any message from us that says, you should do this, you should do that. That, if you are hearing it, is your own filtration, your own interpretation. We always acknowledge your complete power. We always acknowledge your complete masterhood. And though we may point out alternatives, never will we forsake you for the choices that you have made. So that will give you a sense of our energy. That will give you a sense of the complete 100% unconditional love that we have for you. And to you as well. Shutting. Nice.
Quickly, when you were speaking with Vinny,
Time's up. Next. All right.
when you were
You said quickly, and we're not quick enough.
3 quickies.
All right.
You were speaking with Vinny and you kind of checked out for a while. I have an answer, but I'd like to ask about that.
Well, no offense, but I was having another conversation.
That's what I thought.
All right.
And so it was something that was not more important, but something that you just needed to collect with other of your.
Something that was relevant to my timing, and even whatever you would consider as an interruption in a sentence was perfectly synchronous and a perfect reflection for you all as well.
Another society.
Ace.
Not Earth. Yeah.
No. Not our own either.
Syrian?
No.
Okay,
Number two.
are you familiar with the spirit of Manatee? Have you ever heard of that? We've labeled that. I'll briefly say.
Describe.
Yeah, it's more of an Indian. I guess it came from an Indian, American Indian interpretation, but Manitou is the spirit of nature, the spirit of the rocks and the trees and the that kind of thing.
All right. Perhaps you can say it is the inherent consciousness within all expressions, for not one iota of matter or energy exists that is not in some way an expression of consciousness. Though this is not always obvious, and you will often say, this is conscious, this is not. That is technically incorrect. Everything is conscious, however, different densifications of consciousness have a different expression and have a different method for perception. So therefore, proceed.
So like the stone and the rocks, and specifically in these chambers that I check out, they have, in their density, according to their density, they have some sort of consciousness.
Well, yes, everything does. No exceptions.
So if a tree falls in the woods, it really makes a sound.
Well, that will completely depend upon the purposes. But you may understand there are instances in which it would seem not to, but you will never be there to witness it.
So it doesn't make a sound.
Well, again, it does and it does not. It will depend. It will depend upon the perception, upon the perceiver. If a tree falls in the forest and the only one there to perceive it is a deaf person, it makes no noise. So it will simply depend. And you cannot tell that deaf person, yes, it made noise. It did not to them.
But it made sound waves.
To whom?
Does our consciousness affect the consciousness of second dimensional and first dimensional things?
Well, does it interact and can you interact with it? Yes. Can one thing affect another? Technically, no. Nothing literally affects you. You buy into a bill of goods, a belief system, and affect yourself, and then will generally, shall I say, assign an external symbol for having done the affecting.
I understand that, but
So that applies to what you are asking directly.
so the first and second dimensional objects, like stones, animals, have their own consciousness that is completely separate from us.
Well, in one way of looking at it. In another way of looking at it, everything is one expression, connected and not able to be disconnected. So it is point of view. From one point of view, what you are saying is accurate. You are, in that sense, attempting to say it is this or that, when in fact the ultimate truth about it is that it is both. And that is why it becomes difficult to translate that the tree makes noise and the tree does not make noise. For you assume, well, it must be one or the other. Therefore, you do not allow yourself to perceive the reality where both are true.
But I thought that the consciousness of animals existed more to interact with us.
Well, it is an expression of your own consciousness. You are separating it out. And from that point of view, you can get particular relationships, connections, and disconnections. But fundamentally, they are all a reflection to you from you. Does that seem like too much to handle?
Yes.
All right. Do understand, you do not create anything that you cannot already handle. And your creation of the concept tells you you are ready to begin digesting it. Is there some reason that this hangs you up?
In the new metaphysics, on the explanation of animal consciousness, when I read it, I took it, my understanding of it was that animals do not have the same kind of consciousness we have.
But they are conscious.
But they are conscious. But their consciousness
Is instinctive.
But I thought that we influence their consciousness. We don't.
Well, you reflect, you have your opinions about their consciousness, you have your explorations due to your interactions with them, and in that sense you draw effect from interacting with them. If in that sense their perception allows for it, they will do the same with you many times. But it will be automatic, not analytical. I understand this gets confusing.
Well, when animals reincarnate, they usually reincarnate as animals and very often with the same owners. I'm talking about pets.
Well, that is possible. That is one of the things that occurs, but by no means is it a rule. It is a tendency. For your consciousness will attract certain things if it expresses itself in similar ways. If not, then it will not. So in other words, again, remember you have lived thousands of lives. Your awareness of one or a few of them is because only are those lives and what was done in those lives relevant to what you are exploring now. The others simply seem like someone else, for they have nothing to do with anything that you are looking at.
I'd like to answer the question. Jimmy, are you finished? Just to answer the question.
Oh, thank you.
Do you have animals on your planet?
Yes. But we do not keep them as pets, and they may from time to time, shall I say, be within our proximity, may from time to time be colloquially within our domiciles, if that should be, but it is far looser. And because the overall approach of animal consciousness being a mirror or reflection of your own consciousness, both individually but your consciousness collectively, you can always tell, because it is a 100% perfect reflection, many things about the society by what you call the natural habits, if you will, of the animals of that planet. So for instance, upon our planet, animals are not carnivorous or predatory, nor are they territorial.
Are they second dimension on your planet?
Well, there is not so much the separation, but there would seem to be a different presentation of consciousness without what you would call the sentient self-awareness of your own consciousness and the sentient self-awareness of the other intelligent species upon your planets, the cetaceans, dolphins and whales.
What did they all eat? Vegetables? What did they?
Well, various things. Some will actually, as you say, contain similar to what you refer to as photosynthetic cells. So many of them will also interact with the environment as we also physically are beginning to.
Okay, so you're not afraid of animals at all. You don't have anything like lions and tigers.
No.
Well, we do have similar expressions, but they are not predatory. They are not territorial. They are not dangerous in any way, nor are we.
And they look like ours.
There are similarities, but perhaps you would notice more of the differences. We also, again, being that our planet is over 70% covered by water as your own, have a population that you would perhaps colloquially refer to as water-dwelling.
I guess you don't have zoos.
No.
How many beings live on your planet?
Now, one moment. Were we to, in that sense, wish to observe a particular species, synchronistically, that species will generally attract themselves to a particular area. And we will, in that sense, have the ability to interact with them, but not in any way, shape, or form in a caging manner. For we would not, in that sense, prefer ourselves to be so caged.
How about insects? Do you have insects?
Not really, no. Is that all?
Wait a minute. What? Birds. Birds. Do you have birds?
Yes, we have similar expressions that in that sense would fly, yes. There are differences again as well.
Do your animals evolve?
Well, not really, but they may change expressions from time to time depending upon their particular exploration.
So as you're going into the fifth dimension, what will happen to them?
Interesting question. One moment. They, in a sense, will also seem, in that sense, to become non-physical as well, and be, perhaps you can say, in many ways, blended into us and no longer perceived in terms of separation. We thank you for asking.
Elan?
For now, that will do. James, are you through?
I'll be very brief.
Oh.
I'm perceiving that you're very busy. That's the reflection I'm getting here.
Well, we always are. We are fully involved, again, with our excitement. We do not suggest that you do anything that we do not do ourselves.
But on this other communication, this other level.
Well, not as we speak.
No?
No.
Okay, then briefly, my son Duncan is 5. he sits in this kitchen cabinet that I have sitting on the floor. It's his spaceship. We took this telephone apart, and he has it all in different parts, kind of like E.T. in the movie. And they're all dotted inside. And he pushes in numbers, and he tunes into all this stuff. I don't speak to him a lot about it.
Well, do not be surprised if he would seem to physically see us before you.
I know. And I've asked him. He sees fairies. He's offered me this. I haven't really put in his head. And he's a beautiful child. He's really. I wanted to ask you. What's going on with him specifically? Because he has experienced asthma as an infant, and he's very sensitive, and sometimes he shuts down. But I think he's very in communication with on some other levels.
So what is the question?
Is there something more that I'm not so aware of right now?
Well, perhaps you can say that he, as many of your children, have not been taught out of many of the things that you later then say you would prefer to do. So we simply suggest that you look at your perception of what is occurring and in that way be as supportive as possible.
So he knows you, doesn't he?
Well, perhaps not by name,
In a dream state?
but by, shall I say, interaction, yes.
Yeah, because...
But he would perceive his interactions with me as occurring, again, as you have said, through his dream reality, but also, again, will bring back memories of interacting with me as memories of interacting with other humans, many times children. Many times children will perceive interactions with us as interactions with other Earth children when they bring it back as a memory.
Yeah, I understand that. And it's just blowing my mind sometimes on the information that comes out of his mouth.
Well, all right. Do you wish in that sense to clean the floor of your blown mind?
What?
You have suggested that he has had the capability of dispersing your brain by blowing it.
Okay, yeah. Sorry.
All right. Interesting language.
Okay, so I guess that pretty much answered it for my other two children,
Ace.
Katie and Jamie. I know that we're all very much connected, obviously, but
Now, allow me to make one more suggestion. In interacting in any situation with what you call guide consciousness, the point in and of itself is not the talking. The point is how one can take what is communicated and apply it through action in their reality. As we had discussed at the beginning of this interaction, action moves the reality. Action manifests. Action midwives thoughts to things. Action creates. So where you are beginning to explore an individual who is touching in with such a source, simply suggest that when that source has a suggestion for something to do, physically do, that, again, if the individual is excited about it, that they begin to ground themselves into the physical reality again. Again, having a connection with the heavens, having a spiritual connection, but while maintaining firm connection, feet on the ground.
I do.
All right. We thank you. Sharing. Ace.
To ask you about internal communication, and a lot of people, I'm sure, communicate with different beings and would be more and more. I hear voices and from different points in my head.
Now, have you seen a doctor about this? Just having some fun.
Actually, the physical point are always vague. And was one day if you can explain the physics of it.
Well, again, it is simply the expression of vibration. And if those vibrations or communications vibrate in that sense to the point where they sympathetically resonate with what you would call your eardrum, which simply detects vibrations, they can literally be perceived as sound. Did that translate?
Yes.
Perhaps that individual will explain it to you.
I don't use my eardrums to hear those voices.
All right. But it is a similar mechanism in that your ears do not actually hear. Your brain does. So we are simply using the analogy. The vibration sympathetically will activate the portion of your brain that corresponds to the portion that processes auditory signals. Is that clearer?
A little bit, but are different points of my brain used?
Well, again, you are assuming a localized, shall I say, dispersion and apportionment. And in effect, you will understand the brain is one of the most blatant examples of a holographic organ. So, in some sense, perhaps you can say, yes, portions of your brain are, in a sense, enacted, but not necessarily the same one for the same idea, all contained.
Elan.
One moment. Is that all?
Yes, and the pitch that is different. That also, does it serve any purpose?
Well, yes. In general, the pitch will vary so that you can distinguish one source from another.
So that is
So the voices are from two sources, maybe.
Each individual, including each and every one of you, have literally a signature vibration. For you will understand that one of the only constants in your reality and all realities is change itself. So as you change, as you are completely externally, ideologically, politically, economically different than you ever have been in your whole life, what allows you to identify yourself as a single continuous individual is that idea, what you call your signature vibration. So when you interact with the signature vibrations of others, they will generally differ slightly, and that can be interpreted through pitch or by other means. Can simply also feel different.
So how about energies from your planet? Would they be similar, very similar to each other?
Well, in general, they will not seem to be voices that you will hear, but will more manifest as voices that you will think, so to speak. But there can be exceptions if perhaps we are wishing to get your attention.
Thank you.
Is that of assistance?
Yes, very.
We thank you. Back there, male.
Yes, how can we practice unconditional love in our daily lives?
Very simple. Every time you find yourself judging, number one, so what? Do not judge yourself for having judged. Allow yourself to have felt it and validate what you feel. But step perhaps 3 would be to not continue to do that. In realizing I am judging this individual and I am assigning a lesser value in the processing of that judgment, I no longer wish to do that. Perhaps they are the embodiment of everything I no longer desire to be, but that is their exploration. So, catching yourself in the midst of judgment and reminding yourself that I do not love or simply love everyone, I unconditionally love them can be as simple as it can be. Does that sound too simple?
That sounds pretty simple.
Catching where you judge, allowing it to be all right that you have done that, and then choosing not to continue to is the bottom line. Again, you can also tune into, because it is constant, ever flowing, the feeling of the unconditional love of all that is, which, by the way, translates and is described very often through individuals in your society as pure ecstasy. Once you allow yourself to feel that to any degree, it is a simple matter to then match it, for it has provided an example. All right.
One more question.
All right.
About emotions. How can you get closer to your soul? Know more about yourself or deal with your feelings.
Well, exactly in what you have said. Deal with them. When individuals create unpreferred negative emotions, very often they will assume that does not belong. I should not be doing this, and judge themselves and so on. you can simply say, all right, all right, all right. I feel this. It stinks, but I feel it. And I understand that all feelings are a result of a belief. And I understand if I want to trace this belief, first of all, I better allow myself to feel it. While you are in the midst of submerging yourself in the emotion, simply then ask, what would any person who feels this in this situation have to believe? And be honest. That is all it takes. Once the belief comes forth, in general, you will have a response similar to, oh yeah, I do not prefer that belief, but I must admit, I am displaying it right now. And were I to continue to feel this way, I will think very negatively and probably do things I will regret. But in having acknowledged it, you can then again bring in, all right, here is what I prefer to believe. And here is what my imagination shows me a person who believes that would do in this same situation. And then again, having placed a very appropriately timed pause and now acting according to the preferred belief, even though you had had the initial negative interpretation, you still get a positive result. And that then changes your tendency to interpret things negatively that much more. So, as you have said, being honest, dealing with the feelings, allowing yourself to feel it. If you're miserable, be really miserable. Remember that you are perfect creators, and when you create misery, it is perfect misery. And you can dive into it. Now, not only when you dive into an emotion does it deliver its belief, but in general, when you allow the expression of it rather than squelch it, you also get to a point, and that point is, all right, now what? When you squelch the emotion, you recharge it, put it back in the closet, it gets in back of the line, and by the time it's in the front of the line, it's awfully angry. Do you understand?
Yes, thank you.
Therefore, use your emotions. And in fact, we will go one step further with all of you. Whenever you find yourself saying in any situation, in any form, why me? Why is this happening to me? Poor little old me. What did I do to deserve this? That is only one interpretation, and that does not allow you to use what you have created and allow it to deliver its message. You can substitute all of that with the simple statement that we refer to as the wild card, for you can pull it out of your deck anytime. And that is, all right. On the surface, this appears negative. It appears non-preferential. However, I created everything. This is probably not the one exception. Therefore, how, and here is the key to owning your reality. How? I've already looked at what's bad about it. Quote unquote bad. How is this of service to me? Exactly the way that it presents itself. That is a creator, assuming from the automatic presumption that it is a creation, and rather than why me, looking into, all right, I know it's a creation, but why did I create it? How does it serve me? What is it telling me? What is it a 100% perfect reflection of? Does this help?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We thank, oh, sir, all right. We thank you, mister. There will be but a few more sharings to this interaction. Sharing.
I wanted to ask, when the transformation takes place on the planet.
Well, as perhaps you will say culminates, it is already taking place.
When it culminates, will there be a spin-off of the third density Earth for those people who continue to choose that experience?
Well, you are assuming Earth A and Earth B. There will be many and constantly are. But as you ground yourself to your earth, so to speak. For instance, through positive action, through preference, through unconditional love, you will attract a nucleus around you that will reinforce that. And the other, quote unquote, negative individuals through one natural means or another will seem to simply, many times, die or disappear. And it will seem from your reality that everything is continuous. It will seem from their reality that everything is continuous. And when the splitting frequencies are so different that there is no overlap, you will no longer perceive each other. Now there is a similarity and a vacillation in vibration, so there is still a commonality in the earths that will choose to present negatively, the earths that will choose to present positively, and every conceivable gradation between.
Elan, do you have much personal knowledge and understanding of what takes place between incarnations?
Well, personally, yes, for we choose in that sense to remain conscious and to not impose the degree of what you would call amnesia, however, not in every given moment. Our relationship in being physical is that we know beyond the shadow of a doubt that we always know exactly what we need to know, exactly when we need to know it. So we trust when we think about it. And when we wonder about it, we simply know. And the next moment that we are doing something else, it may no longer be to our conscious awareness, for it is simply not applicable.
Well, can you tell me what occurred, what I experienced between my last incarnation and this incarnation?
Not really, for you are already to some degree aware of this and invalidating it and seeking for external validation from me, and that is not my job.
Well, actually, my question is not about getting information about me. My question, I've read a lot of books that deal with what takes place when you drop your body, when you're not physical, when you die. And
when you shift your point of view, again, dropping it presumes being in it, but proceed.
Right, and many of them have to do with a type of gradation of experience. You drop your body and you have experience on the astral plane for a while where you learn things.
Whatever you believe most strongly at what you call the time of death, about death, is what you will experience. So what you are describing exists within the frequency of that belief.
So what would be the optimum thing to believe? What are the possibilities? That's what I'm asking.
Well, you are assuming, again, a optimal choice, and there are many. But the idea is if you come to terms with what you believe now about death, if you look at that, if you decide that is not what you wish in that sense to experience, you can begin to explore what you would wish to experience and then begin to look at what beliefs will allow you to do so. That's simple. When you are non-physical in that way, your thoughts immediately manifest without the corresponding necessarily emotions, thoughts, and actions. It is belief, manifestation. Belief, manifestation. Change the belief, change the experience. No intervening time, similar to what you call your nighttime dream, where one dream becomes another, you think nothing of it, you wake up and say, why didn't I notice?
What you're saying is we create our own reality there as well as here.
Well, what is so unusual about that?
Well, nothing unusual.
There is no outside. Everything is within you.
I understand. I'm asking for more information from your point of view as to what actually does take place between incarnations for people like us.
Well, again, I am answering you.
We usually create for ourselves.
Well, heretofore you have created what you generally refer to as a self-imposed, though you were not always consciously allowing yourself to be aware it was self-imposed, cycle of karma. But now, in that sense, you have the opportunity to understand that that style of balance was a choice and that you need not experience necessarily tit for tat. Balance can be maintained in many different ways. So I assume that one of your particular orientation will choose to remain focused and conscious in a particular way and then simply explore consciously without an agenda. And then should you choose to return to incarnate, which is perhaps more likely than you imagine because you will be incarnating into the post-transformational earth, and will in that sense have much joy and ecstasy in it, but that will be up to you completely. So in a sense, it is though you were unleashed, so to speak.
There are other options besides incarnating here, is there not?
There are any options that you can imagine, and in fact, you will find experientially that you cannot imagine non-existence. Anything that you can imagine exists somewhere. In that state, you will give yourself the opportunity to experience it directly.
Is there an average time that people like ourselves spend in between incarnations?
No, that is completely variable. You will find that individuals will sometimes do so for what you in linear time track consider to be many years, but that may not be their experience of time at all. For if they choose to remain connected to what you call the earth plane, they will still, or you will still perhaps choose to experience the creation of some perception of time, but it is no longer synchronized to the earth linear time flow.
I understand. Does that realm of experience provide an opportunity to learn things that cannot be as effectively learned when in incarnation?
Well, again, there are different experiences to simply be that have nothing to do with each other. But again, it is not colloquially truly learning. It is simply, all right, this exists within me. That is what I wish to experience. This exists within me as an option. I wish to experience that. And if part of experiencing that is forgetting 99.99% of everything you know, this is what you get. But not all realities impose that forgetfulness. However, the forgetfulness has a very distinct advantage. And as we have shared with you, when you already know it all and are in your higher self, pristine, simultaneous, everything existing state, nothing can be experienced as new or surprising or as a discovery. That necessitates what you call forgetting.
Is the continuity of consciousness between waking and sleeping essential, or does that open up the possibility of being conscious through the death experience?
Well, it is an expression of what you would call your signature vibration, because even though in your nighttime sleeping dreams, you will be in completely different surroundings with completely different people, you still know you're you.
How do you develop that continuity of consciousness such that you come back, you wake up with complete knowledge of everything you dreamed about?
Well, in general, you will not, for it does not serve your purposes in choosing to be physical. You experience certain things to touch in with them and then choose to, quote unquote, come back to this. So they are separate experiences.
So it's not really a goal to develop that continuity.
Well, understand, if you are talking, how can I be more lucid in my dreams? How can I know I am dreaming while I am dreaming? It is very simple. However, it has little to do with the sleeping dream. And the way that you do that is to live this waking dream in a conscious manner. Each time in this dream, which I remind you, you are dreaming right now, that rather than simply completing a momentum, you pause. You say, this is from an old belief. I don't want to do this. Here's my new belief. I want to do this and do that. You are lucid in this dream. So creating your reality in the way that we speak increases your lucidity in this dream, and automatically then do you experience in the sleeping dream suddenly finding yourself lucid.
Likewise, that would enable one to be conscious through the death experience.
Well, yes, there is an analogy to be made there, but you need not have one as a prerequisite. And if you create the belief that it need be, then you will create that effect, but only because you created it.
Well, is there a way to specifically develop that ability to be conscious through the death experience?
We have discussed this with you many times before, and what you colloquially refer to as astral travel, and my assumption is that you have not done so. But if you will explore it, that will be more similar. That will perhaps give you some practice.
Elan, thank you.
Oh, and to you as well.
Elan,
Ace, female. Greetings.
I've been going through a lot of self-awareness kind of growth over the last.
Oh, congratulations.
Felt really great. So I guess I'm excited about that.
Well, thank you for sharing.
But there are times when I really want to be fully present and really allow everything allow myself to fully experience what's happening in my environment or interaction with people. And in that, I feel like I approach it in a very loving, open place, but I'll feel a tremendous tension beginning somewhere in me. And I don't know if that's something I need to look at because I have to acknowledge something that's coming up for me, or whether I'm actually receiving some energy that could be tension or negative energy from someone else.
Well, the question is this: regardless of their intention, why do you match it in a way where it is perceptible? So to lead you perhaps in a particular useful direction, your first description that it is something within you to look at, why do I have such a button, is the most advanced approach to integrating it. For it takes it back to you. And you are the only one who can make any changes in your reality. And in fact, even in interacting with me, should you understand that changes have taken place, I will always, in no uncertain terms, remind you, you have done it all, I have done nothing. So therefore, being aware of it, rather than automatically doing it, is the first step. And the second step, rather than simply accepting it on face value, is to dialogue. What am I feeling? I'm feeling this. All right, feel it and go through the aforementioned steps. Is that practical?
That is.
You will find again that you will, through that methodology, wake yourself up in this dream and no longer be functioning from anything but full consciousness and full choice and preference with integrity. All right.
I have another question.
Proceed.
You said to follow what excites us, follow our passion.
With integrity, yes.
With integrity. I am becoming more aware of things that do excite me and I feel very passionate about. And it's leading me to feel like I need to take more time off from work in order to pursue these. And yet I have a commitment there, and it's actually one in a family business. And I feel, am I reneging on my commitment and my responsibility?
Part of an agreement
Yeah.
is being in touch with those that you have agreed with.
Mm-hmm.
Agreements are not necessarily etched in stone, but renegotiating them with integrity is just that. Being forthright, being willing to express who you are, expressing what your needs are, expressing who you desire to be, and then in that sense, requesting how that can be in that sense reconciled. But you will find in verbalizing this, perhaps the response to you will surprise you. Many times it is simply taking that first step. But allow us to make another distinction. For very often, things that you are truly most excited about may simply not be an option in that moment. And the distinction is, not only are we speaking of the things which excite you the most in your entire life, period. That is one expression of it. But the other expression is in the moment, from what is readily accessible, readily available. Which one of these ideas is the most exciting that you can act on with integrity? So that gets you going immediately. And by maintaining the other things which excite you, which aren't available, by maintaining them as a clear intention and following your excitement from what is available, it leads you directly to that other opportunity which is not now present. But you have done so in creating the vibration of excitement. And what connects all the things that excite you in your life, no matter how diverse they are, is the commonality of the fact that they excite you and are an expression of who you choose to be.
Oh. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. I have done nothing. Yes.
When you were talking about the past civilizations coming here in UFOs, I'm just wondering, the past civilizations...
Now, I did not say that, but do proceed.
In the past, did civilization, or did parts of civilization, not only go to other planets, but stay on other planets?
What you would refer to as your human population did not go to other planets. Now, there are some individual exceptions, but in general, we are referring to the comings and goings of the extraterrestrials themselves.
So humans have not left. No humans have
Well, again, there have been exceptions. In general, they are not believed.
So then they have been taken away by extraterrestrials.
Well, not necessarily taken away. They may have chosen in that way to participate in a different reality.
Okay, and when they did they leave the third dimension and go into another dimension?
In the way that you are asking the question, no. They experience, perhaps you can say, a different aspect of third density.
When members of our society visit these spacecrafts, is their vibration changed in any way?
Well, understand that being that as the vibration that you are right now, you are not traveling by such a means, you will understand that when you do by necessity, you will have changed your vibration. It will not be the you that you define yourself to be characteristics-wise now that actually goes into space.
Okay, but when we visit spacecraft, if I were to visit a spacecraft, in order for me to be able to do that, would my vibration temporarily have to be changed?
Yes, it would, in that sense, be altered for your perception to change and allow that
So
perception.
they have to do something to us physically, or they have to give us something.
Well, they can shift their frequency to correspond with your perceptual range. But again, your actions change your vibration. And as you do what excites you and express that integrity and love, you get results that literally change the vibration of who you are and therefore open up an entire new possibility of reality. Because this is more how we act, and that is our vibration, that reality allows for our physical coexistence.
Members of our society, I think members of our society have probably visited other planets, but I'm talking about really our government. Any of our military, have they visited other planets?
In the way that you mean, no.
So they haven't actually.
They, in fact, are in possession of technology from what you would consider to be extraterrestrial sources and have not been, quote unquote, able to fully utilize it in that way.
Are they talking to extraterrestrials?
Well, not necessarily ongoingly, but it does occur. There is a particular communication between the civilization that you refer to as the abductors and your government, but not your government proper.
You say what part?
Not really, for it is dispersed, and many times will be individuals that you are not aware of, and therefore the vocabulary is not present in the channel.
But they haven't actually. Have they gone to aboard spacecraft? The government?
Well,
Any members of the government?
there have been isolated incidents, but not recently. Many decades ago.
They went aboard spacecraft. Was it a friendly visit, or was it?
Well, yes, in many ways, diplomatic visit.
And that was a long time ago. And they had.
Well, more prevalent then, when first contact was made at the end of your 40s.
Why did it?
Well, in a sense, again, I say it is ongoing, but there is less of an organization on the part of your planet. You are very busy with your own world. There are, at present, over 30 wars occurring upon your planet. Plenty to do. All right?
Yeah, okay.
One more question, Elan.
All right, make it brief.
In a session I had with you, you mentioned that I was there on your planet visiting.
Well, we were referring to a future self. What is the point?
The question was, in what capacity was I there?
When we next meet, you will tell me. We thank you. At this timing, allow me to thank you all for the perfection that you've chosen to share with us this evening of your time. We value and revel in your approach, in your perspective. We value and revel the relationship that we have developed over the many years that we have communicated with your society. We appreciate your willingness when you are not always completely willing to be honest with yourselves, to be more than honest with us. For this, in a sense, allows you to get the idea, allows you to understand that when you are honest with who yourself is, that it cannot destroy you, but it reinforces who you are, and allows you to choose, if it is something about yourself that you no longer wish to reflect, to change it. And when you do, you will then be a perfect reflection of the new idea you are exploring. You are all perfect creations, no matter what. We thank you and bid you a most fond and loving good evening and good life.